Okay. So we're holding here in the Gemara in Mesechta Megillah Daf Chafhei Amid Beis 25b. We're continuing the discussion of different parts of the Torah where it was when it was read out loud in the shul. Only some parts were translated. It's because you got it, Baruch Hashem, and some parts not. So now we're up to actually a very surprising part of davening and of Kriyas Torah, of reading the Torah. This is in Parshas Nosoi, in Aliyah of Revi'i, right before the Karbanas, the sacrifices that the Nesiim brought coming up in Chodesh Nisan, which we're going to learn about today, at the end of the Shiur, Mitzvah Hashem. Birchas Kohanim, the blessing of Kohanim. When it's read in shul, and during the time that they would have a Turgaman, a translator, they would read it in shul, but limit Targumin, they would not translate it. I don't blame them, because Revi'i in Parshas Nosoi is the longest Revi'i in the Torah. The longest Aliyah of Revi'i. You have the Parsha of Nazir, the Parsha of Soita, and then you have at the very end the 4 psukim of Birchas Kohanim, of the blessing of Kohanim at the end. So therefore, people you could say are sort of ready for the next break, for the next Aliyah. But you don't translate it. Why not? Other things which are derogatory, which are negative, the sin of the golden calf, what the Reuven did, David HaMelech, Amnon, etc. These things I understand. There's a reason why not to translate. But Birchas Kohanim, you don't translate it with a Targum? Why not? Birchas Kohanim Mikrayim V'Lemitargum, says the Gemara. This is about 14 lines from the bottom of the parak. You read it and you don't translate it in Aramaic when you read it out loud. My time, what's the reason? Gemara answers, Mishum Dichsiv, because it is written, Yisa Hashem panav elecha. May Hashem lift up his countenance toward you, which sounds like, may Hashem show you favoritism. Now, we know that, let's X out of this. Here, I have it. I brought it here on the screen. Here is the Birchas Kohanim. May Hashem shine his face upon you and grant you favor. Seemingly, we know it says that lo yikach. Let's find this over here in Parshas Ekev. It says, Ki Hashem Elokeichem, Hashem your God, Hu Elokei Elokim. He is the God of gods, meaning the gods of everything that looks like it has power. Vadonei Adonim, and the master of the masters. Right, the great, awesome, mighty God, which we said is the source of Shemona Esrei. Hashem shows no favoritism. So if in Parshas Ekev it says Hashem shows no favoritism, how can we say in Birchas Kohanim, Yisa Hashem panav elecha? May Hashem show favoritism towards you. So therefore, we don't translate it. Then we shouldn't read it either. Why do we read it? It could be read because those who understand the meaning could understand and know that they are supposed to have learned this Gemara. This Gemara, and let's bring it up on the screen here. Brachas Daf Chaf Amid Beis. Gemara over here says, brings an anecdote. Rabbi says, sometimes in the name of Rabbi Ami, sometimes in the name of Rabbi Asi, who are both buried right next to the Rambam in Tiferes. Today's the second day of learning a Rambam. The angels said to Hashem, Master of the world, it is written in your Torah, Hashem does not show any favoritism, and Hashem can't be bribed. But you show favoritism towards the Jewish people. Tichsiv, as it is written, Yisa Hashem panav elecha. May Hashem show favoritism towards you in Birchas Kohanim. Amar Lem, Hashem told them, how can I not show favoritism to the Jewish people? Because they go beyond the letter of the law. I in the Torah wrote to them, eat and be satisfied, and then make a bracha. So let's say somebody who has a very big appetite. When they were younger, maybe, they ate, in order to get full, you had to eat a full pie of pizza. When I was in yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, I remember one time going with a friend of mine to a pizza store, and we ordered a pie of pizza and a bottle of soda. We finished it, half of him, half of me, and the bottle of soda. Next to us came four, I don't know, seminary or high school girls. 4 girls, each one ordered 1 slice and a salad. So each of us individually ate with all of them together. So it says in the Torah that you only have to bench once you're full. So however much it takes you to get full. And us Jewish people, we make a bracha achrayna, a after blessing, even if we eat less than the amount that gets us full. Even if we eat a kezayis, an olive size of food, we make a after bracha. And a kibetza, if you eat 2 olive sizes, the size of an egg, of bread, then we bench. We do the long benching. So we are much more stringent on ourselves. So Hashem says, how could I not show them favoritism? So if someone understands the Torah of Hebrew, he probably learned that Gemara as well. And therefore he knows that it's okay for Hashem to show us favoritism. What we're saying is, Yisam, Hashem gives you extra favor, extra help. Continues the Gemara. The incident of David and Amnon is neither read out loud, you have to learn it by yourself, or learn it in yeshiva, but it's not read in shul as a haftarah. The loy mitargemin, and if it is read for any reason, it's not translated, meaning these are, these are for rated, not by age, but rated by knowledge. You have to be able to learn it by yourself. The Gemara asks a question. Didn't he say previously? Might say Amnon v'Tamar nikra mitargim. The story with Amnon and his sister Tamar is read and translated. There's 2 different stories over here. One is Amnon, how he rebelled against his father David. One is Amnon, how he violated his sister Tamar. We said before the story of Amnon, how he violated his sister Tamar, is read and translated. Now the story of Amnon, how he rebelled against his father David, is not read nor translated. Amnon also, David had the hardships from many of his children. He said it came as a result of no, because certain things have to do with the city of Noiv, the Kohanim. Shaul Hamelech killed the city of Noiv, the Kohanim, when David ran there. David was running away from Shaul, but the people, the Kohanim of Noiv, didn't know. And when he came, they protected him, and Shaul got so angry, he killed the city of the Noiv with all the Kohanim. And so David should not have put them in danger, so that's why he was punished later on, that his sons rebelled. He was a tzaddik, tzaddik with no yetzer hara. I'm saying a very unique tzaddik, and he was, for the slightest things, he was punished. He cut off David Shalom Melech's tzitzis when he was sleeping in a cave, saying, I could have killed you, but I didn't, because you're a king. And he became cold at the end of his life, and trembling and shivering. So Hashem was very strict with David HaMelech. So the story of Amnon and David is not translated and not read either. The story of Amnon and his sister is read and translated. Does that make sense? One is rebellion, one is incest, which is a lot different. The Gemara answers like Kasha. It's not a question. Hodichsiv Amnon ben David. Hodichsiv Amnon Stama. When Amnon in the Torah in Shmuel, when it's read as Amnon, the son of David, you connect him to David HaMelech. So then we don't translate it and we don't read it because you don't want to associate David HaMelech with this. So because you're thinking of David, you're associating him with this story. When you're saying Amnon, not mentioning David at the same time, so then there's no affront to David HaMelech at all. So then you could mention Amnon's name
but maybe
and translate it.
Even though Amnon had done actually something he wasn't supposed to do, but it may be actually a bit actually less because she was conceived.
Correct. It was less. Correct. She was a daughter of Hastayar, etc.
Yeah.
Correct. Also, there's a big difference between the Torah and Nevi'im. Torah, you have to read it. You have to read the entire Torah in shul. The story of Ruvain might have been skipped as well if we didn't have to read the whole Torah. Navi, you have the choice to just do a different haftarah. Or you don't have to read the entire Navi. We don't go through the whole Navi throughout the year. It's pretty much impossible. It'll be a longer Torah reading than the Torah itself. Continues the Gemara. Taner Rabbanan. Are we going to go to the topic? Is there ever such a thing that to a Jewish person, you're giving him too much praise? The Frierdiker Rebbe, he will write letters, thousands of letters, and he will write titles to people, to the Chassid, the special Jew, the Chassid, the Yerushalayim, the God-fearing Jew, Isha Elakim, Nachba V'Naila, and he would write praise titles about different people before, as introduction to their letter. And they would ask the Frierdiker Rebbe, some of these people that the Frierdiker Rebbe would write the letters to are quite far from living up to some of the standards that the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said that when he's writing them, he knows where they're holding at the time, but he's implanting them and he's opening up the potential for them to reveal these traits inside of them. So he sees what they could be, and when he writes it, he's revealing these traits, making it come out. And some people it takes shorter, some people it takes longer. When he writes it, it comes out. There was a famous line that some people said that the Rebbe said, "I'll be a chassid," right? And he says, "I know I'm not going to live a long life because the Rebbe says I'll become a chassid." Professor Block, shliach in London, Ontario, many years till he passed away. He was a shliach from the 60s all the way till he was a professor in Aristotle. He wrote a book on it. So he was. If Moshe is here, I think Moshe is here. Moshe Nash. So you know Professor Block. He was brought to Lubavitch. He's from Nashville, Tennessee, originally. And Rabbi Zalman Posner, Moshe is also from Nashville. He was the one who brought him to the Rebbe.
Yes, I met him a couple of times and had the honor of speaking with him several times. He was a wonderful man.
Yeah, I remember when he bring for us in Yeshiva in Toronto, when we were a young Bachram, and the things he spoke about with us were beyond our age to understand. He had a very low voice. He used to have to speak in a mic. Professor Block. Yeah. There was a Fabringen every year that he would Fabring for the Pegisha. Pegisha was when college students would come for Shabbos to Crown Heights, to be by Fabringen of the Rebbe. And Motzei Shabbos was always a Fabringen with Dr. Block and the students. And it was an exclusive Fabringen. No one else was allowed in but the college students and their chaperones. So my father snuck in a few times just to, because he was a chaperone, supposedly. But from that Fabringen will literally come out, Balichura from the Fabringen every single year. Very, very unique, special person who called it as it is. So Professor Block, he came to 770, came to the Rebbe, then afterwards he tried out other yeshivas for a while, and then he came back later. The first time he came, he was by Fabringen of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe called over Rabbi Zalman Posner, and the Rebbe told him something.
Was our Zalman Posner?
Rabbi Posner's son. He was a shliach in Nashville.
I see.
A rabbi of a shul in Nashville for over 50 years. So the Rebbe called over Rabbi Posner, the one who brought Professor Dr. Block to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe, he was a professor in campus, besides for being the shliach. He was both. And right now, in London, Ontario, the campus, they have his son-in-law, his name is Gorkov, is a shliach there, and they have over 100 students, I think close to 200 students every Friday night at their Shabbos meal. The Rebbe told him something, and when he went back to his place of Fabringen next to Dr. Block, so he asked him, "What did the Rebbe tell you?" And he wouldn't answer. And later on, years later, he told him, the Rebbe told him, "Go tell whatever Yitzchok, or I'm sure he called him his name. Go tell him that so at the chassid, as Dr. Block would say. At the end of the day, he's going to become a chassid. So what is he pushing it off for? Like, what's he on the fence about? I mean, the Rebbe is using obviously open Ruach HaKodesh. He says, I was too scared to tell it to you. So I never told it to you. But later on, years later, he told him what the Rebbe said.
And that's once he was already a chassid, right?
Yeah, once he's already a chassid.
Makes sense.
And he says, but the Rebbe told me I should tell you then, but I didn't. But so you'd always say, if the Rebbe said, sof, a chover and a chassid, at the end of the day, I'm going to become a chassid, so I know I'll live a long life to be a proper chassid. So is it okay to give excessive praise to somebody? Not chanufa, flattering, but excessive praise when you don't have it. So let's look at the next Gemara. Is it ever okay to make fun of people, make fun of things? Tanu Rabbanan, our sages say, Kol ha-mekrois haksuvim b'Torah lignai. Where the Torah said where we said that we do not translate it is because it's something negative, and we're trying to not publicize a negative. And whenever there's a negative connotation, a word that is a very not clean or not nice word in the Torah, so then you could read the word differently. In the Torah, you have what's called the kri and the ksiv. Sometimes in the Torah, a word is written one way and it's pronounced a different way. This all comes not from what Chaim made up, from sages made up. It's a tradition going back to Moshe Rabbeinu. He received it from Hashem on Har Sinai. We cannot introduce our own kris and ksiv based on what we think is a right thing at the time. So the ksivs, when there's a word that's a very negative word, a coarse word, non-refined word, we change it and we read it out loud as in a refined manner. Kegoin, for example, you have this in Torah and you have this in Nevi'im, in Zechariah, on the Haftarah on the first day of Sukkot. It says the word Yishgalena, which means another. It says it's part of the curses and part of it says during what's going to happen during the war of Gog and Magog, that a man will marry a woman and a different man will Yishgalena. Yishgalena means will intimate with her, yeah, but in a coarse type of way, and we read it as Yishkavena. He will lay with her in a more refined way. As a matter of fact, Yishgalena, there are different pirushim which bring from different places what exactly it means, Yishgalena. But at any rate, it's not something that's a Torah way of doing things. Another place where it says ba'afolim, hemorrhoids, and we read it batchayrim. Says Hashem. It says one of the curses Hashem will ba'afolim is where it's talking about where like sort of dung, like a diarrhea type of thing, and you use it as batchayrim, which is a less explicit type of word than the word batchayrim, because you have the word called oifel. Ayin Fei Lamed means like a hidden place, a dark place. He came to the hidden areas. So it's a euphemism for a place, a makkah, a malady in the place where you don't see, where the sun doesn't shine, where it's always dark. So instead of using that's instead we use the word batchayrim, which is we don't say batchayrim, we say ba'polim. Ba'polim is a less explicit type of lashon of term than the word batchayrim for the same word, which is hemorrhoids. Similarly, chiryonim devyonim. Chiryonim is what it means is when the doves go to the bathroom, right? They call it chiryonim. And we use the word devyonim instead of saying the bathroom stuff. We say the doves flow. It says and there was a great famine in Shomron, and they besieged it until a donkey's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and a quarter of a kav of dove's dung was for 5 pieces of silver. Right. So the word is chiryonim, comes from chari, who comes out from the not clean part. We read it as devyonim, the doves flow. Similarly, lechal escharayim v'lishtes esmei meshinayim. the go back to over there. Says they will eat. You know, the famous story, there was a Jewish apostate, his name is Rav Sheka. He was originally Talmid Chacham, and he became a apostate, Rabbi Tzvi, one who served idols, and he became what's unfortunately we see it today. It's always been our biggest trouble throughout our entire Gullus, and not just Gullus, throughout our entire history. Is he became one of the biggest anti-Semites ever of history, and he was a general for Sancheriv. Sancheriv was a king of Ashur, Assyria, one who exiled 10 tribes, the one who destroyed the entire Eretz Yisrael besides Yerushalayim, and he was miraculously killed on the first night of Pesach. His entire army, he had to run away, and he was eventually killed by his sons when he wanted to sacrifice his sons to his idols as a Avodah Zarah. If you go today to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim, you could see all the fortifications that Tiskio built, and you can see the water tunnels that he dug and walked through them to sustain them during the siege by Sancheriv. And Rav Sheka, he was a apostate, and he stood up. You know, the Assyrian army surrounded Yerushalayim, and they were outnumbered by thousands. I think the number was 500,000 to 10,000 or something. Like they were completely outnumbered. And he told them, he says that, when they were crossing the river, the north of Eretz Yisrael, maybe the Paras, to Sancherib's men, the first men and horses of his had to walk in the water till their noses, but the horses drank so much as they were crossing, and their clothes absorbed so much that the second wave of people had to cross till their knees, and the third wave walked across in dry land because they dried up. You know, it was like a little stream of water. And so Rav Sheka, he was blaspheming Hashem and saying words against Hashem, and he was speaking in a not clean way against Chizkiyahu, against the people. And he's saying, surrender, give in to Ashur. Don't you see what we have already done to all the nations all over? Don't you see what we've done to the rest of the nations or the people? And he says, has he not sent me, the men, to sit on the wall, eat their own dung, drink their own water with you? He wanted Chizkiyahu to come to the wall and have a showdown with him. What ended up happening was Chizkiyahu said, I'm not going to him. And he sent and said 3 of his generals. And these 3 generals had to repeat what Rav Sheka said. But when Rav Sheka blasphemed Hashem, they tore their clothes. And afterwards, when they repeated it to Chizkiyahu tore his clothes.
If Rav Sheka was saying, nobody can be spared from the Assyrian
Correct.
God.
Correct. And right. And he was saying not the things he said about Hashem. So the things that he says, when we read it over, we change the lashon. It says lachos charem lushis is me'meshineim. So when he says that they're going to eat, people they're going to eat their own excrement, their own feces. The lushis is me'meshineim, and drink their own urine. The water of shinayim is called the teeth. That's where inside of the body things are processed. And we read it a little more refined, lechel es sayasam, to eat their own excrement, but saya is a more refined way of saying it. The lishtes is me'meraglayim, to drink the waters of raglayim. If you look in the Siddur, and we used to say that they used chelbina. Chelbina is a certain type of foul-smelling spice they could have put into the Tiferes, that they put into the Tiferes, to say that we're not doing the mitzvah of Tiferes, the incense, the good smell in the Beis HaMikdash, because it smells good, but rather because Hashem said so. And they put in chelbina. And the Mishnah says they could have put in meraglayim, which means urine, to make that negative, not good smell. But ein machnis meraglayim b'mikdash u'pneiha covered. We don't bring this into the Beis HaMikdash because of honor. And the Siddur translates it, we don't bring the waters of raglayim, but it means the urine. So we read it in a more refined type of way. The importance of what you say, even if, people say, I'm looking at someone acting, and it's not them, it's a character. There's no such thing as a character. I'm acting out somebody else. I'm repeating somebody else. Every single thing a person does has tremendous koyach. There's a story that there was one time that when the Rebbe was inside of his yichidus room with one of his secretaries was there. I'm not sure whatever he was doing there. And outside, there was a yeshiva, two yeshiva bachrim were speaking outside of 770, and you could hear it. There's a window, you could hear the conversation when they raised their voice. And one of them lifted his voice and said a curse word. And you saw the Rebbe's face went white. The words that you say have a very severe effect, whether on you, whether on the person. And so words can never hurt me. I mean, the words that a person says has tremendous koyach, tremendous power. It makes a person more refined, less refined, controlling your words. And we see this from the Torah that we're able to change the words that we say to be in a more refined manner, in a more refined way. Let's continue the few other examples. Lamacharois, lumitzois. Open up over here. This is, I think, by King Yehoyash, or by King Yehu. Yeah, and Yehu went, and there was and he went ahead and he destroyed. I'm thinking he had a war with the rest of Yerushalayim, with the rest of the brothers, his family. He killed them, and he killed all the idol worshippers, and he destroyed Esmatzeves Abal, and he destroyed the pillars that they made to serve to an idol called Baal. By Yitzchok's Baal, they broke it down. Vayasimuhu, and the word is lamacharois adayim, and they made it the macharois, a place where you go to the bathroom till today. And that's the way it's written, and we read it l'mitzois. Mitzois is what you find. We find after you go to the bathroom, but it's just a more refined way of saying it. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, "Lemacharois kishman if nation gnai lavedazara." He says, no, you don't read the word as mitzois. Don't say mitzois. Right? And that's mitzois is in brackets over here. Read the word rather as macharois, which is in Yiddish. There's a word called macharaika. You've heard of macharaika? Macharaika is a something that's broken. Take the broken thing. Comes from this type. Not the macharaika. You read it with the original word, and in this case, you are allowed to say a word that's unbecoming, that's not proper, because it is a gnai, it is contempt for idol worship. Over there, it's speaking, the Torah is telling us what Yehu did to the idol of Baal, and he destroyed it and destroyed the temples, and he made it into a latrine, he made it into a place to go to the bathroom till today. Latrine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Latrine. He made it a latrine until this day. So there, when you're making fun of Avodah Zarah, you are allowed to use not good words. You are allowed to use negative words. So now we're going to go into the when are you allowed to say negative words? When are you not allowed to say negative words? When could you insult someone? When could you not insult someone? When can you insult somebody, not insult somebody? So let's go into this. Amr of Nachman says, you're not allowed to make fun of anybody or anything except for idol worship. So a comedian who making fun of people is, Torah says, you're not allowed to have litzanas. You're not allowed to have such things unless it's idol worship, unless it's avodah zarah. The Rebbe himself said, I never make a joke. Humor is fine. Humor is to say something in a humorous way. But to make fun of people or things is something you're not allowed to do, except when it comes to making fun of idols. Because we see the Torah itself mocks idol worship. Where do you see that? Tichsev, as it is written, says the god of that the Babylonians worshipped was called Baal, not with an ayin, but without an ayin. Right? It's confusing with an ayin, without an ayin. And it says that the god of Baal, Kara Baal Kodesh Levi. Just read it over here. Baal bows down, Nebo stoops. Their idols and their beasts upon the cattle. There's a word right at the beginning. They stoop, they bow down together. Karsu is when you're bending down to go to the bathroom. Generally, you're crouching. Karu is also like a woman's giving birth. It's called kara. They crouch. A lion crouches. So both of these are by the zaras of Baal and Levi. Both of them masa. They cannot deliver their burden. They were not able to escape. They have gone into captivity. So the Torah itself that says that they fell down. There are a bunch of images all over the world. You have statues of this person or that person, and they don't have power to fight back and hold themselves up. And it says that these statues of Baal and Avai, they fell down like a person who has a stomach ailment and goes to the bathroom before they even have a chance to sit down. It's already coming out. The Torah itself is making fun, mocking Avodah Zarah, and it says that the Torah continues and mocking Avodah Zarah, and it says that they weren't able to empty out their bowels like other people, meaning so much was in there they couldn't empty it out. So if the Torah itself is making fun, mocking idols, we see that you're allowed to mock idols. Now, don't add this to say that you can make fun of other people or other things. Shulchan Aruch says that you're not allowed to make fun of anybody, of any Jew, but you're allowed to make fun of idols, and you're not worried that a person might come to make fun of other Jews because they're used to the idea of making fun. If someone's so used to poking fun at idols, idol worship, you might say that will become his nature. So you're not worried about that. And also, the Gemara tells us immediately, it doesn't say you're allowed to make fun of idols. It says you're not allowed to make fun of anybody except for idols. To tell you, don't make this into a person who you are. If you are a person who wants to make jokes the whole day of other people, don't look for idols to make jokes of. And once we do that predicate, that premise, we're going to start having a whole bunch of other examples of when you're allowed to make fun of people, and when is it legally halachically allowed to insult others? But we'll also go to the other extreme. When are you allowed to praise others, even though they don't deserve it?
Praise somebody falsely, eventually you'll come to say things that are not nice, going to be nice.
Correct. Yeah. Like Rabbi Karp is saying very good that if you praise someone when they don't deserve it in a false way, then you're going to come to say negative things about them also. So there's halachas when you're not allowed to praise somebody when in front of other people, then you shouldn't necessarily praise someone because they might come to make fun of them. I'll give you an example. Let's say you see somebody and he's very, very strict on himself, and he will hear the Megillah on Purim 25 times. Why? Because he's scared he missed a word by every single Kriyas Megillah. The whole day he's nervous about it, and you know that he's going to do it. So now you go to the next person, and you go to your group of friends, and you say, "Oh, that guy! You know how many times he hears a Megillah? 25 times. You believe it? Oh, you should see how nervous he was all the time. You're doing it. Everyone else should have a good laugh." So that's a type of praise which will bring other people to criticize, to make fun of them. That's not considered a praise. Well, I'm only saying good things about them, right? Sure. But that's knowing that it's going to bring a negative thing. There's a famous story about a certain Chabad Niggin called Al Kain, right? Haben Yakir Li Ephraim, a very deep niggin, and there was a niggin which reaches, like I say, deep into the neshama of a person. There was once a chassid who, having tasted, he realized he has a talent to make people entertain people, and he went to the big city, and all the people liked him and loved him, and eventually went to a big city. He joined the theater, and he became known as a very big entertainer. And he would always, what do Jewish comedians make fun of? Jewish people, right? What do every comedian make fun of? Their own people, because that's what they know best, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays, if you make fun of anybody else, it's considered to be on whatever. And so he was making fun of a chassid going to the Rebbe, and a chassid this, and a chassid singing the niggin, and he started singing the niggin. And as he's singing the niggin once and twice, and suddenly he got so inspired into the niggin of a Ben Yakirli that he couldn't do it. And he and on the stage in front of everybody else, even though his show was supposed to go on, kept on singing the niggin over and over until they lowered the curtain on him. And then they never hired him again, and he went back and became a chassid, all from the power of the niggin. Certain things, the maskilim, the enlightenment, haskala, they tried. The biggest arch enemy was chassidim, because that's the ones that had the hardest time to break into, and they used to make fun of chassidim all the time. And they made many songs making fun of chassidim and jokes. And one song that they said to make fun of chassidim was called "As the Rebbe lacht, as the Rebbe danced." When the Rebbe laughs, all the chassidim laugh. When the Rebbe dances, all the chassidim dance.
Yeah, I learned it from my mother.
You learned it from your mother?
Yeah.
And the amount of bali tshuva that this niggin made is unbelievable. This song that was made to poke fun of chassidim, to mock them, the amount of bali tshuva made over the years, I've heard from elder chassidim, elder shliachim, is an unbelievable, many bali tshuva that they know over the years. So yes, we don't make fun of other people, and etc. But about Avodah Zarah, you are allowed to make fun. I wanted to finish the perek today. We're almost done, but maybe we will just finish the perek on Monday, because tomorrow is Rabbi Darren. We'll finish the perek in Mitzvah Hashem on Monday, chapter Beis, and then we'll take a quiz together. Then we'll, there's this chassid over here. His name is Rav Chaim Rosenbaum. That way you can see him better. There's a book about him. For some reason, the book's on sale for $4.49, which is a steal of a deal. Cheaper than I bought it for. But Rav Chaim Rosenbaum, he lived in the city of Pleshnitz.
Was he a Lubavitcher?
Yeah, chassid. He was born in 1860. He was one of the great chassidim of that era. And it wasn't although the Tsarist Russia wasn't as bad, I would say, as Soviet Russia, it was still pretty bad. Today's Russia is better by all standards,
Definitely.
of every standard, even in Tsarist times, except in maybe in the ruchnius, in the spiritual aspect, but so this is a chassid of Rav Chaim Rosenbaum, and he was one of the better known chassidim, a tremendous maskil and oved. He was a mashpia and a businessman as well. And there were some non-Jewish businessmen, anti-Semites, which didn't like him at all. And in the beginning, they made a libel against him, and he was arrested, and he sat in jail for 3 years. We're talking about in the 1890s, he sat in jail for 3 years in Russia, in the city where my sister is a shliach now, in the city of Smolensk.
Oh, the one who was married to Rabbi Munshine.
Correct,
Right?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So my sister's a shliach in the city where he sat in prison for 3 years.
She's your older sister, right?
And so Rav Chaim Rosenbaum, this is where he's buried today in New Jersey. That's him, and in his later years. So Rav Chaim Rosenbaum he was arrested for 3 years. He wrote many letters to Chassidim from jail, from Russia, trying to help him get out. And after 3 years, he was released. He went back home to Pleshnitz, but he was told by very good friends of his that were, in the police department that they're going to arrest you again. And they told him the day after Simchas Torah, they're arresting you again. And he had enemies who will keep watch on him, and they will stop him escaping. So that's Simchas Torah. He was in the shul in Pleshnitz. And as usual, he was the one running the show, and he was labedik and excited and saying Chaim as usual. And that night he ran away, and although they tried catching him, he managed to escape. He left, and he was in France, and he was in Belgium, and he didn't have much fortunes. And he had a friend of his who moved to America. His name is Rebbe Shifrin. If you know the Shifrins from who used to live in Pittsburgh, it's a great grandfather, the police officer David Shifrin. So their great grandfather was named Rebbe Shifrin, a great chassid of the Rebbe Rashab, who came to America, who was in turn convinced to come to America by another great chassid. His name is Rebbe Tzvi, chassid of the Rebbe Marash, who put together the child service of Samach Tzedek. And so Rebbe Shifrin, he wrote to Rabbi Rosenbaum saying how all the stories you hear about America, that's a land of opportunity and a land where everyone has very well financially, are totally not true. But you're free to do whatever you want over here. And Yiddishkeit-wise, but it's a very difficult. But he came to America, and he lived in America in the late 1890s till he passed away in 1914.
Did he bring along any family?
And all of his children.
Ah.
And when he came to America, so in 1898, he lived here till 1914. He came here the same year that Tamchei Tminim was established, the yeshiva. He raised a lot of money for Tamchei Tminim. He wasn't in major debts, but the one time he won $5,000 in a lottery. And the letters that he wrote to the Frierdiker Rebbe are all around, and they're printed. And he wrote to the Rebbe Rashab, what should he do with the money? And he sent right away $1,000 to the Rebbe Rashab. And he told the Rebbe Rashab that he has debts about $4,000 or so, or whatever it was. And the Rebbe Rashab said he could keep the rest of the money for you. So before he passed away, this Rabbi Chaim Rosenbaum passed away here in America. They say that one of his descendants now goes to Chabad somewhere, so I'm not sure who his descendants are exactly. But he's buried somewhere in New Jersey or in Brooklyn. Yeah.
His descendants are actually remained Lubavitch or what?
It's talking about his descendant. He's already older when he came, right? 1914. So I think his children but his grandchildren grew up in America in the early 1910s. It wasn't much of Yiddishkeit, and like tens of thousands of Chassidim who came to America then, I don't know what's left in Yiddishkeit of their descendants. So Rabbi Chaim Rosenbaum, it says a story before he passed away. He said they brought him a siddur to say vidoy, and they opened up to vidoy, and he said this is a vidoy of a misnagid, meaning a vidoy of someone who's focusing on their sins. And instead of vidoy, he opened up the Pesach Eliyahu, we say in Erev Shabbos, introduction to Tikkun Zayar, and he said it with kavana, and then he passed away. So that story I'm bringing because there's another chassid before he passed away. He was saying, where's online siddur? Here it is. We say, Ashamnu Beganu. We say confession prayer before we pass away. And the sort of chassid was a very great chassid. And he was going through it, and he's looking through it. Says, he went through his life. He says, when I sinned, when did I sin? Beganu, I stole, when did I steal? And he's going through every single one of these things. Tafal and Sheker, he knows who he is. He was a great, great person. And then he came to the part, Latznu, I have made fun of. He says, I ever made fun of anybody? He went through his thought. He says, yes, there was one time I made fun of people who were opposing Chassidus at that time. And he says, but do I regret that? And he said, I don't regret that. That's Latznu. What we see from there is that it's very important not to make fun of people. And it is one of the things that we say in Vidoy, in Hashem Beganu, because the idea of Litzanas is a very important thing not to make fun of. There's a whenever, I'm saying my grandfather was farbrengen very, very often, but whenever someone would try making it less serious or less, like it happens that sometimes by farbrengens, and he would say, Shah, you're not allowed to show your teeth by a farbrengen. What does it mean show your teeth? I mean, laugh when you show your teeth. He says that's not the idea of a farbrengen, to get together and to talk negatively. What you do is to get together and to talk positively about your neshama, about this person, about everybody, to find the good in everybody, and that's what a yid is. So we'll pause over here. They want to do at least one thing of halacha, so we'll do at least one sif of Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It says Kol Chodesh Nisan Einam Tachnun. In the month of Nisan, we don't say Tachnun at all. V'lo Tziduk Hadin, we don't, by burials, we don't say the long nusach of called Tziduk Hadin, which is of mourning. V'einam Tzidkaska b'Shabbos Mincha. And by Mincha and Shabbos, we don't say Tzidkaska, which we say 3 verses to commemorate 3 people who passed away at that time. Moshe Rabbeinu, David, and Moshe, David, and Yosef, I think, who passed away at that time. And we don't do any of these things of sadness or avodah zarah or mourning during Nisan. Every single day, one reads the Parsha, in the Torah of the Nasi, and our minhag Chabad is that we say Yiratzin afterwards. And on the 13th day we read till the next portion of Parshas Valoischa till Ken Asa Saminera. And also we don't say on Shabbos, which didn't mention over here, we don't say Avarachim on Shabbos because Sfardim do it every single week. They do it during Nisan as well, but we don't. Avarachim on Shabbos, Yiskar, so it's part of Yiskar, and so we don't do it during the month of Nisan.